Welcome to my annual major journal flip. Now this is my loose leaf, my big loose leaf journal, and I have done a bookbinding course on how you can bind this. This is a tape and Coptic bound journal. Now I've got custom covers and leather tape bindings that I've used with a pamphlet stitch, and then I've used Coptic bound. Now with my Coptic knots, you'll see they're pretty knotty, and that's mainly because I decided to use waxed leather thread, so it's a little bit thicker than the linen thread, but this is because I like these journals to really last. This looks nice and flat. I have predominantly black spine here and signatures, and I'm very happy. My covers are covered out of linen tea towels or placemats, and I really liked the beautiful kind of newsprinty kind of look. I also had some script, but the script wasn't going in the right direction for me to be able to cover the entire journal. But you can see that I've got like a newsprint look going on in the back. I haven't finished doing my design on it yet, but I am doing some kind of a fairy and mushroom design on the back, which will be really cool. And I hand painted this on the front, and it's looking really cute. I love it. It's quite unique, and I've just put a little 2016 on the bottom here. Nothing hugely mind-blowing, but yeah, there we go. So as we go into the journal, this is one of my digital colouring pages, and this is actually the digital print. So I printed this out with waterproof ink on my inkjet printer, and I did it onto a watercolour page, and then I used inks to actually colour this page. Absolutely love it. It's one of my favourite pages, and it uses a lot of the negative space really well. You can find this on, you can buy these, they're only $1 for the digital download. You can print it as many times as you like, and that's at my store, and I'll put where you can find this, the link to this, in the description of this video, but also on the screen here. So this is the only page that I'm kind of not happy about, and I will be painting over these black threads. This is the first page, and this is one of the last page that I did for this whole spread, and it was a class that I taught right at the end of the year for a private workshop, and I really loved it. I had drawn this beautiful little fairy. She's based on this larger one here, so you can see this. You can probably see this a little bit easier. So she's a much larger, but this is smaller for this page. And I taught a class on how to do that with the fairy, and how to use some napkin paint over collage to get the background going really nicely. And I really like this. I love the saying in it. It's just living is not enough, said the butterfly fairy. One must have sunshine, freedom, and a little flower. By Hans Christian Andersen. Love that. Kind of makes me think a lot about the simple things in life, I think, and what's hidden. But I'm going to paint over this black thread here because I don't like it running through this page. So these pages are a collection of pages that I've taught for Journaling Crazy Island Style. This is my last year teaching on Journaling Crazy Island Style. I simply can't fit such an intensive teaching schedule into my schedule next year with uni, and it looks like I'll probably be on hopefully another couple of design teams and my private teaching and art therapy schedules. So I had to give one thing up, and unfortunately it was that course. But this is one that I did about teaching the basic human form. That I did a series of these sorts of pages. They were all about getting in touch with thoughts and emotions that have been going on, and then doing a bit of collage and work, and I did some paint and pastels and things like that. But I had some really good images to work with. This is predominantly watercolour, and I've used a little bit of acrylic later on. That was a Lifebook page, so that's a Quirky Bird Lifebook page. I kind of took a little bit of a license on the Quirky Birds. I think this one here's my favourite, but I love the teacher as well. And did something quite different to what Tam taught. I really like it. This is another one as well, so that was a Lifebook page, but I really liked it. I've done an extension of that in other work that I've done, and I loved the sentiment of it and the feelings behind it. It was done with some shaving foam, marbling, and then watercolours over the top for me. Another kind of collagey type of page. This was for another workshop that I taught. Loved the idea behind this one and continuing drawing the crown in. I didn't draw this girl. She is from a brochure that I got, but she was lovely and matte and not glossy, so I left her as she was. This is an art therapy page that I taught at a workshop, and it was more about using the same kind of technique as the ripple effect, but focusing on emotions that can be more aggressive or passionate, and to put some thoughts down about that, using the same technique of shaving foam, marbling in the background, and then watercolour at the front. These are my two oil pastel pages. That one was done for Journaling Crazy Island style. It was an exploring page using Sgraffito, and this is also using Sgraffito with some doodled cats on there. Love it. So these are not in chronological order. So this is one of the last pages that I did. I had worked with a couple of really basic backgrounds and really loved that. And I've really obsessed with fairies at the moment. So I'm working with fairies and playing with ink and pen, using the Epic pen a lot for this drawing. Absolutely loved it, and it worked really well. And this is a fairy who's got a bud. Her hair is like a flower bud. Absolutely love it. This was a Lifebook lesson, but it was like a Pauline Agnew lesson, and she challenged us to do a charcoal drawing but over the top of a randomly painted page. I picked something very different than what the lesson was, and I think this sketch took me about 20 minutes. Yeah. And it's one of my favourite sketches from the year. It's a little girl. She's got this really kind of stoic look. I feel like she's looking through me. I just love the simple nature of it, but I think I've captured her expression so well. Really gorgeous. Another JKIS lesson. I think this looks a little bit like Claudia Rossi. And I was teaching a different kind of a lesson on different ways of doing faces. This one was a challenge because I did it on the honeycomb side of my mixed media paper, and that was really difficult to get some of that out of the overall texture. This was like an art journal, an art therapy page that I did right at the beginning of the year in January 2016, and it was all about journaling and emotion. At the moment at that time I had joy, and I used splatters of things and bubbles, and it's like bubbles of anticipation, joy, and showing how simple you can make some pages, and they don't always have to be incredibly intricate, and they can really express an emotion that you have at the time. This is part of a series of posters that I designed for the Jules Conference 2016, but they are also digital colouring in pages. So I took really good scans of these and modified them. So these are all in my online store as well as this first one here. And these were blown up into big posters and laminated, and people bought those at the conference. But I tend to paint these with inks a lot, so I tend to use inks for these because I really like the bright nature of it. And they are really gorgeous. So these are not the originals, these are actually the printed versions, so really cool, and they work really well. And I just give you an idea about what you could do with the same thing. If you download it, again, it's $1. This is my fairy princess. She's a bit gorgeous, love her. she came out of a Pinterest image that I saw, and you can probably see she's very glittery. So you can see she's lovely and glittery. And I love doing glittery. For some reason, I used a wink of Stella pen for her hair. But I love her eyes, and I love the kind of barely there sketch of her face. I think it captures her really well, and the Cornelli work on her dress. And this is pretty much all done in watercolor. It's got a little bit of pencil and ink, and some Tombow marker in the hair, but not a lot really. Most of it's done in watercolor. Really gorgeous. Again, another life book lesson. This is an Angela Kennedy lesson, and that was just Stabilo or pencil and a different way to just quickly sketch and get something done. I liked to have it very, very simple. I left it there just as it was. It really did something for me. This was an anime sketch that I actually did in 2015, and I hadn't stuck it into a journal because the page was just done on cartridge paper and it was a little bit smaller. But this one I decided to preserve the sketch and pop it. It just works very well with this one here. So I have a YouTube video, another one of my digital colouring pages. I have a YouTube video about this one on my channel, so if you want to see how I coloured this, you can go and have a look at my YouTube channel. It's called Be an Artist. Another one of these pages where I'm doing collage work. I did a lot of workshops, different workshops on the same concept of this year, and I was really taken with these beautiful pale lemons and greens and oranges, and using very simple images that were doodled on and scribbled on. And I just really had a similar message. It was all about doodling emotions again, and used a feather to do the circle around her with some loose acrylic watered down paint. So this is a slightly unfinished page. So this is remnants of a class that I taught in Journaling Crazy Island style back in 2014, but I've put a little bit of a different spin on it because I had a class that really wanted to do it, so I taught that again this year in a workshop. And then in this one again, it's a different spin on a documented life page that I did back in 2014, but I haven't finished it yet, and I'm doing something different with it, and I'm not quite happy with it yet. And it's one of those pages that I love, that I can work on in this kind of a journal because of the Coptic binding. It lies really flat, and it's easy for me to work on it without ruining the pages underneath, and on a flat surface as well. So this was my intentions at the beginning of 2016. I really like the simple nature of that, so I worked with really nice watercolors and just left them there, and then used some markers here. I love that basic checkerboard border, and I just used ink, white and black to just put them in, and doodled a little bit on there. This is it's going to be a paint over collage lesson that I haven't finished yet. It will be coming to my YouTube channel, but I decided to bind it in here because again I can work really nice and flat, and it gives an extra page to my journal for this year. So unlike other years where all of my pages are completely finished, there's a couple in this journal that aren't quite finished for the year, mainly because number one, I finished 3 other journals this year. I've actually done a lot of work this year. I have another teaching journal that I have already bound that's got work in it, and I pretty much finished off a large delusions journal, and also a smaller delusions journal. Video flips for those coming very shortly or already up on my YouTube channel. So I've been doing a lot of work in all different books this year, and a lot of sketching books. So I find that, you know, I run out of time with all my teaching and things to be able to get everything done. This again is another one of those pages that I'm going to paint over down the middle. It was where I ran out of thread in the middle, and this was incredibly, this is like cardboard. This could actually be a cover. It is that thick, this signature, and very difficult to get it through exactly where you find it. And I will just paint over this black thread and just disguise it a little bit as part of the page. So I did a little bit of an exercise of different types of watercolor flower arrangements, teaching one of my classes about the different properties of watercolor and some of the different techniques that you could use. Again, another class that I taught, this one's actually on wallpaper, and we learn how to do a very cute kind of whimsical girl and use some collage outfits for her body. And then I liked using some of my random die alphabet pieces to do this, and my saying on this one is chocolate doesn't ask silly questions. Here's another one of my colouring pages. Again, it's done in inks and is available in my store. I love it. This is a flip-on lesson that I taught in 2015. It was all about the wings and how we do alcohol markers on tracing paper to do the wings. I added some additional butterflies in here and taught how to do a back-facing profile that was slightly to the side without a nose, and also all about the hair and the background. Again, an unfinished page, but it's another paint over collage page. I'm kind of working on the body at the moment. I haven't started on the dress or too much of the background, although I've added a tree in here. So I'm going to work further in on this one, and I'll probably work it was for another workshop, and that's as far as I got when I was helping everybody else to get their pages done, and it works very well. Another one of my colouring pages, so I've done this one in actual watercolour and some Tombow markers, just to show a different thing. Again, you can buy this for $1 on my web store. This was a lovely one that I did in, I think probably in a class that I taught probably in April 2016, something like that. Based on a girl that I did for a blog last year when I was on the Crafty Crusaders design team. And I've got some beautiful sprays, which are a little bit of Delusions and Lindy's Stamp Gang Flat Fabios in the background. She's not painted over the top, she's painted on a separate piece of paper, and we use all our mixed media techniques with inks, watercolours, pencils and markers to do a couple of different things with her. This is one of my most popular online lessons, and consequently some people saw this page and thought, oh yay, I really want to learn this in a workshop. So I did a couple of private workshops with this page this year. It was lots of fun. This is one of a series of pages that I did where I got some of my students at the end of the year to have a look at all the leftover papers that they had from different kinds of projects and backgrounds that they might not have used yet, and to start crafting multiple pages to finish off their journals before we went into binding. I really liked this one. I cut out a whole heap of petals and leaves from different kind of jelly printed and scratch papers, found a sprayed background that we hadn't done, that a student hadn't done anything with, and it was a really good way of doodling our thoughts and feelings on the one page, really kind of bright. This was one of the bases for my stencils and a lesson that I taught at the end of this year on journaling Crazy Island style. I actually painted it earlier in the year, much earlier in the year, but I've got a smaller version of this stencil on my web store that you can buy. So another one of these unfinished pages, but I'm working more with the human form. This is a very kind of fierce looking fairy. I think she's going to be dark skinned. She's got these kind of claws for hands, and she's very earthy, and this is on pastel paper, and I've just put in some background colours at the moment. I haven't done too much with her, mainly the sketch, and I haven't decided yet what her crown will be, but it might be like bones or something. Bones. This was a Halloween page that I did for Journaling Crazy Island Style, and what I did was I looked at early photocopies that I did of some of my early textured work back in 2013, and I pulled some of those out and then saw something in it and then created an image over the top. It was really cool. Another one of my colouring pages, again done in inks and Tombow markers, and available in my store, digital download for $1. This is one of the last pages that I did of the year, so I was away, didn't have many materials with me at the time, but had this kind of lovely sprayed background, and then I wanted to put some trees over in it, and I saw mushrooms blooming up from some of the ink that had come up, and so I created this kind of fantasy thing and drew this gorgeous fairy, naked little fairy, and I love her wings. Just love that whole page. It's such a pretty page. This was in April of 2016, and this is one of my Faces classes where I teach you how to create a drawing in charcoal. I draw in charcoal, teach you how to do the basic proportions of a face. This was my class example. And then I took some really cheap craft paint and a little bit of flesh coloured craft paint and just blended it in with the charcoal, and blended the charcoal out so you can still see it sort of blends a bit, and then just added in a few pencil details and ink for her lashes at the end, and just those last little details. And that was my class example. This was a mini lesson that I taught on scribble therapy, so I just basically used some Neocolor crayons and a blue Stabilo oil pencil, and I did some scribbles, and then I drafted a page out of the scribbles. So it's really cool. Another one of my colouring in pages. I did a lot of these. These were all these all became large posters, and that's available in my store. A popular lesson that I taught, this is my onions layers lesson. The original was just slightly too big to actually put in here, which is a shame, so I put one of my class examples on, which is a little bit different, but I still really like it. At the end of the year I did a mini lesson on found poetry, so it was all about finding meaning in book text. And I often, I did it two different techniques here, so I had the whole book pages there, and I painted over that the words that I didn't want, and then on this one I ripped them out and continued on and made it a little bit different. This was my first attempt at doing a portrait over acrylic paint with oil sticks, and I really kind of like the dark and dreamy nature of that. I like how she's slightly unformed. I think she looks like a beautiful Aboriginal woman, and I don't know, she just kind of screamed out at me. I was did this at the kitchen table at one of my friends, Robin Wood, and we were meeting up for an art date and just sat down and did that. Cool, very cool. Another one of my colouring in pages, again, it's available in my store. Really like them. Used inks on this one. Teacups, so I worked with Inktense pencils. So this is one of the few times that I actually worked with Inktense pencils. Did a bit of a sketch of stacked teacups that I really liked, and then just water activated it, but left kind of a pencil look there. Really like it. This was one of the lessons that I taught back in January of 2016 for Journaling Crazy Island Style. It's a paint over collage self-portrait of me. I was basically declaring something over my life at this point, and there is a pocket in here that I can put the tags in, and I have some of the tags here, and the tags that I declared over my life just fit in the top. So I created a pocket here, and I can put the tags in there. Again, another one of my colouring in pages done with acrylic paints this time. I think these are the last two of the colouring pages, so all of these are available as digital download art journaling pages. And again, these were some of the posters, and they're $1 each. So if you like them, go to my store and buy them. This was a lesson that I taught on expressive painting. We started on a background of fluoro yellow and orange, and then we painted, we had a reference photo of a Buddha, and I deliberately did a Buddha because the eyes are closed and it was easier to craft the face and without drawing it. So this one we did it without drawing, and I didn't want them to be really exact about the image. And then for me, I did some black paint around it, and then I wrote 4 times over the top with white Prisma pencil, and there was a whole heap of emotions that I was thinking about that day, and so that was really cool to be able to write all that down, and it's a really cool background for that. This is done with liquid graphite, and I basically just had liquid graphite, a spray bottle, and a water palette, and a paintbrush, and I just kind of crafted a rough bird out of that, and just kind of let the whole thing flow, ebb and flow, just to play with the liquid graphite ink. It was really interesting. And I've got a lot of my journal thoughts woven in, forming the roots of the tree. This is a page that I did earlier on in the year from my first teaching lesson workshop at TJ Scrap and with Style, and we worked on these cute little flowers, doodle flowers with a background and doodle border and little faces in the flowers, really cute. And I've put that at the back because although these are nice and spongy because they're done out of Stampin' Up air dry clay, they can create divots in any of the other pages, so that kind of lumpy bumpy page goes really well at the back of the album. And guess what, I've managed to come in under half an hour. Woohoo! So that is my gorgeous album journal for 2016. Now I have 3 of these, 2014, 2015, 2016, so go take a look if you haven't seen them before, and you'll see how my work has been evolving over that time. And I always think it's really cool to partner with artists on their journey, and I like to show you where I've come from and where I'm at now. So ciao for now, can't wait to see what I share with you, and let's continue on in 2017.